Hey, good morning, everybody. Jim Benton here. Thanks for joining us for the Chorus Daily Briefing. Today, we're going to be talking about the data across different segments, different markets. And I've got Vinay Bhagat from founder and CEO of TrustRadius with us today. Vinay, great to have you here. How are you doing?
I'm well, thank you, Jim. Thank you for having me join.
Very much appreciate it. We're a big fan of your service out in the market. And I was curious, you're out in Austin. How is just life outside of work right now? How are you holding up?
Holding up just fine. Spending some quality time with my family, which has been great. Kids have enjoyed having, I think, more time with their dad than normal. And, started cooking a lot more, which has always been a passion of mine. And I think staying at home has forced it to come out. So that's been fun.
Those are all really positive traits, very similar to my household right now. We're cooking more and more kid time, which is really, really great. I'm curious, any surprises on the work at home front from just running a business, and anything that has surprised you, positive or negative?
I mean, Jim, I think we're forever changed. It's been a true forcing function to understand how to communicate more effectively as a leader. In Canada, I used to show up to my all hands with just a punch list of items I wanted to talk about, and now I'm much more orchestrated.
Yeah.
3 days before I build my slide deck and make sure I have a very kind of coordinated plan. I think the stakes are higher in terms of how you kind of communicate and set priorities for a team when you don't have the ad hoc communication abilities that you might have had before to engage people. And overall, it's been very positive, but in terms of being forever changed, as I look to the year ahead, we're rethinking our real estate strategy and maybe how we may forever be sort of a hybrid work at home and in-person culture. And, I think previously we had assumed that we would always be a fully kind of in-person oriented environment. And I think that's going to be changed.
I've had the same approach. I've always been in office, 5 day a week. We're having the same dialogue ourselves right now. And in many cases, certain events are more productive. We have our all hands today at 9 a.m. It's more effective to have everybody have the same tile on Zoom than to have two rooms with a camera on the side of the wall and you can't hear the other group. So it has changed, I think, the way we communicate, and just the effectiveness of chat and, bringing those into the dialogue are incredible upgrades to what we used to do.
Yes, I agree.
Vinay, one last question. You were CEO back in 2008, 2009 of a company. You went through one of these periods. For those that haven't gone through this before, any observations or learnings as you go through it again?
Yes, absolutely. Well, I guess we will prevail, right? There is an end in sight to this. There's a lot of uncertainty today as to how long the recovery will be. I believe it's going to be a U, not a V-shaped kind of quick snapback. It's going to take some time. And there's an open question as to whether it'll be by the end of this year, next year, or even potentially longer than that. So I think you have to be pragmatic in terms of how you plan and run different scenarios for your business. But I think the leading companies, I'm a car racing fan. So the analogy I like to use is that oftentimes through a crisis like this, you do have to pull on the brakes initially as you approach the curve. But thereafter, there's a lot of opportunity around how you can kind of accelerate out of the curve to get into kind of lead position. And I think the savvy companies aren't just freezing everything.
Yeah.
They're actually thinking about where they should be doubling down and investing in. And also, it frankly is a forcing function to improve your game. I've really set 3 priorities for my company. 2 of them are really related to our corporate strategy, but the third is becoming masters of our craft. So whether you're a BDR doing prospecting, whether you're an account, whether you're a CSM kind of managing current customers, it's time to play your A game and really kind of become excellent at what you do. And you should be doing that in all conditions, but a crisis like this is a forcing function to really up our game. So again, I think I view this as an opportunity to really lean in and become excellent at what we do and be really, really acutely focused. But that's how I view it.
I think we're aligned. With our message last week to the team was, this is the time to bring your best. I mean, this is the time to truly help people, but it is our time to just do our best work, both for each other and for the customer. So I think it's fantastic. I appreciate that feedback. jumping into the data, and I know that you've been out sharing some terrific data out in the market. We've included some of that in our session today, which we'll get into. The first stat that we wanted to share, and we opened the week up with this, was when we look at meeting volume across the market, it bounced back up. It was up 9%, and we'll look at this by segment and geo in a second. Is this consistent with what you've seen? So basically, we've seen a fairly steady state across the blended average, and then a bit of an uptick. Are you seeing this yourself?
We are. I think it varies by sort of segment of our business. One of the things that we're really focused on as a company right now is customer retention and customer engagement. So if you were to analyze the conversations that our CSMs and account managers are having with our current customers, that volume is definitely up. On the new business side, we have seen some stratification where our larger enterprise expansion opportunities or net new logos are still moving. We've seen, frankly, at the smaller end of the market, that market drying up for now. So I think it isn't a universal answer, but we are adapting our strategy to try and spend our energy and our time on where there's the most leverage. For us, that's been current customers and expansion opportunities primarily in larger accounts, and that's sort of driving increased volume. I would say that a few weeks ago, our SDRs did hit a wall in terms of new appointment setting. And what we've been trying to do with them over the last few weeks is really rethink our strategy around message, segmentation, offer, etc. And there's a lot of trial and experimentation. Some of the strategies are working, some of them are not. But that last week, we had our best week in terms of appointment setting, primarily because of some new experiments we're running. But it's really kind of tough out there right now.
It's interesting. So you went from hitting a wall, which we've talked to others about. The data is showing that connect rates have been holding steady, but cold call volume has been down. Email's been up, which is more challenging. With some of the new initiatives, now you're seeing a record setting. Any specific initiative or something that you'd want to share with the group that others could be thinking about?
Yeah, I mean, I think in this period of uncertainty, whenever you can add value for people and give them a taste of something for free, that could be data or information, or a trial if your product is trialable, I think those are the types of engagements that are likely to see more success. You know, everybody talks about empathy, and that is important, but I think it's also about adding value, right? Because at the end of the day, people are busy. You need to help them. They're going to spend time on things that are ultimately going to add value to them. So anything that can either provide an insight or a data source for them that's new and novel and can help them do their jobs better, I think is going to work in this environment. We ourselves have been testing a free intent data offer. Mm-hmm. So as a platform, we track intent signals across thousands of different kind of products and categories. And so it's really helpful to a company to know who's in market looking for solutions like theirs. So we've been offering up a sample of that data.
I think it's fantastic. It seems like a new way to get people to engage and start the dialogue, and that's exactly what we all need to be doing right now. And speaking of data, this is a look at the most recent data that we've pulled across different segments. So overall, we're down 8% from pre-COVID levels. So that's baseline is what that is. Yet week over week, up 7% across the various segments. Collaboration project management is the one that has been our strongest. It's above what it was in the baseline. It bounced back this week. Even sales tech, by the way, up 17% week over week. So we're seeing some strength coming back into companies looking to make sure that they're running the sales motion effectively. Overall, for the week, we're seeing some lift. And then on these categories, we're seeing some bigger impacts. So clearly on the HR recruiting, on media, on the data BI and the MarTech, they're still down. Though media and ad tech has shown a pretty good lift week over week. How does this line up with what you're seeing in the market? And any thoughts about certain segments and what's working for them and what's not?
Yeah, I think HR tech and recruiting in particular, we see a similar decline. Obviously, a lot of companies have hiring freezes. Many companies have layoffs. I think there's still a lot of companies who are trying to buy technology that can help them engage with their current employee base from a talent management perspective, but recruiting as a market is much tougher right now. On the media ad tech side of things, there has been a bit of a knee-jerk reaction in ad spend reductions. Some very large companies I know have completely cut their paid advertising for a period of time, which I think is a mistake. I think companies that actually see this as an opportunity realize they can get lower ad rates than ever before because of the lower competition. And we saw this in 2008 as well, where advertising expenditure overcorrected relative to things like actual e-commerce spend, etc. So the software that supports that is unsurprisingly being hit as well. Surprised to see the decline in data and BI companies. That's an area that we're actually seeing some growth around on our platform. And marketing, MarTech, we are seeing kind of a similar hit there, where again, for most B2B companies, there's been sort of a knee-jerk reaction of cutting marketing budgets.
I'll jump into your data. Maybe you can walk us through specifically your data and what you're seeing in the market.
Yeah, so there are, unsurprisingly, a number of categories of software where expenditure is increasing, where it's really driven by the work from home environment. So web conferencing, collaboration, remote desktop are all capabilities that are highly correlated to work from home. As your employees go remote, there are new security holes that surface as well. So security software in certain categories has seen a surge. Clearly, security is a very diverse, broad category, and there are different elements of security, some of which are surging and some of which are declining. And it's interesting to see learning management also becoming a priority, both for engaging customers and employees as well.
When you look at the way your consumers are using TrustRadius right now, have you seen pattern shifts in the last 6 weeks and just how the average consumer either writes reviews or engages in the reviews?
We're seeing really long time on site. So one of the most popular features on our site is reading comparisons. So from our reviews, we dynamically generate side-by-side comparisons. And I think our most popular comparison right now is Microsoft Teams versus Zoom. And the average time on that page has been 40 minutes. So I don't know if that's because the audience has changed, because I think, you have a lot of people trying to experiment with Zoom and Teams that maybe aren't traditional IT buyers, schools, maybe other institutions that are less tech savvy. But also, maybe it's the work from home world. I do think consumption of information patterns have changed. People are spending more time online. Yeah. People are reading more as well. And I believe that technology companies have to adapt to a world where the buyer's journey may have been 67% digital before to now it's 100%. Even face-to-face interactions are now over Zoom or video conferencing technology. So there's just a lot more information consumption occurring, and quality content, helpful content is ever more important.
I think it's fascinating, by the way, and I'm sure that Zoom and Microsoft would love to be in that page, having their teams engaging these customers and skewing them. But truth is something we talk a lot about at Chorus. We help to capture and understand the truth of dialogues and help teams understand that. From a truth standpoint, you've talked a lot about that at TrustRadius. Can you just explain a little bit of how you look at the concept of truth?
Yeah, thank you for asking that. So first and foremost, we try and give the average person writing a review the chance to write a detailed exposition. So when you're dealing with business technology, we don't believe a 30, 40, 50 word review is really sufficient. The answer of what technology is right for one business versus another is use case dependent. If I'm a large enterprise, what I may need may be different to a small business. And so we give people the chance to write a narrative that really explains how they're using a product, its pros and cons, and how well it supports their specific use case, etc. And the truth is in the eye of that one beholder. Now, when you crowdsource, you're sourcing opinions from hundreds or thousands of people, and you see kind of aggregate pictures and statistics. But at the end of the day, what we believe is that buyers want to hear from people just like them, people who live in the same shoes, who have the same kind of work context. So we're big believers in helping people kind of filter data to understand the truth from someone who has the same lens as them. We also really think it's important for brands to be able to express their differentiation. Buyers often report to us that they're confused between different products, that they hear marketing messages that sound the same from different brands. So we think it's really important for companies to be able to tell their differentiation through the words of their customers. And then the last thing that we believe in really firmly is that it's critical for companies to openly invite all their customers to give feedback. One of the things that's happened in the review space is that there's a lot of cherry picking activity, where only a subset of customers who love a product are invited to write reviews. And when that behavior occurs, it doesn't benefit buyers. Buyers benefit when they are able to see the whole truth. So we have active programs in place like our True program to help encourage leading vendors to openly source feedback from all of their customers. We think that ultimately benefits the buyer, where they understand the whole picture. And we think leading brands like Chorus, who've leaned into that program, benefit as well, because then they're getting holistic feedback that they can use to drive a better product ultimately.
I think it's great. The decisions that you're driving right now are impacting every employee across these companies right now. I mean, this is going to drive communication and collaboration, nothing more important. I was curious that you're also seeing some decreasing areas where people aren't spending as much. Can you talk a little bit about this and what you're hearing from the customer base?
Yes. So, one of the biggest impacted areas has been MarTech, similar to your data as well. Yeah. Again, I think it's one of those areas that tends to be the victim of a knee-jerk reaction when there's uncertainty in a market. There are things that are easier to turn off or viewed as being kind of less essential for today. A lot of companies are retrenching from new business growth to just keeping current customers happy and enabling productivity in a work from home environment. So it's natural that things that really are more oriented around growth may take a near-term hit. It's strange to see things like collaboration on this list as well. I think that the answer may vary by segment of respondent, that some businesses are actually investing more in collaboration tools and some businesses are investing less. But I think a lot of these patterns will see material shifts in over time as people feel more and more certainty about just how long this recovery will take, and when is the right time to start leaning in and investing again to accelerate out of the curve. But I think what we're seeing here is the initial breaking kind of knee-jerk reaction that one has when one first enters a crisis.
We've looked at data where there's been a 70% increase in executives joining buying calls and about a 50% increase of executives on the buying side joining the calls as well. Have you found that you've been pulled into more customer calls, more sales calls lately? And I'm curious, if so, why, or what do you think is driving that behavior?
I absolutely am trying to insert myself into more customer conversations and also encourage other executives on my team to do so. We've always had an executive sponsorship program at the company, but it's been sort of more narrowly focused on 2 or 3 execs outside of my head of customer success, and I'm encouraging more of my leaders to participate in that program. And I believe the stakes are higher right now. I think one should never treat customer attention as a given in times of uncertainty. Every piece of technology is theoretically discretionary. There are very few tools that companies absolutely can't live without. And so I think it's critical to be really listening to one's customers at this point in time and also ensuring that your whole company really has sort of that customer first listening mentality. So culturally, we've tried to really step that up right now because of the times that we live in today, and doing much more proactive outreach to executives at our customers to engage them and ask, how we may be helpful to them. On the new business side, it's been highly selective, and I wouldn't say it's been across the board. But I'd say I'm spending a lot more time personally on the current customer side.
One last question on that. How much of that do you think is tied to just accessibility? The fact that it's one click away to join a Zoom and you're in front of the customer. Has that played any role in executives joining more calls, that they can just be in more places in one day than they used to?
I would think so. I hadn't really thought about it in those terms, but I think it makes logical sense. If I look at my calendar now today, I think I'm being more efficient than I was before, just because of how we manage our schedule via Zoom.
It's crazy. It is crazy. I feel the same way. I've heard that from just about everybody. What final thoughts on this slide? Can you just walk us through what the changes from March to April?
Yeah, I think the overall positive news in the headline here is that most companies, still a majority, are planning to return to spend levels in technology post the recovery that they were spending, pre-COVID. So there's a slight dip from March 18th to April 9th, and I think that has a lot to do with just uncertainty. This is a pretty unique crisis in the sense that it's health driven versus being, a financial crisis first and foremost. And I think as people as we unfold more clarity in terms of, what health care innovations there'll be around a vaccine or drugs that aid recovery, we will see psychologically people feeling more confident, and you'll see more positive signal in the data. But while there remains uncertainty right now, I think it's natural to see some week-to-week drop, as people initially thought, maybe we'd be returning to normality by Easter, and that clearly, wasn't correct.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think the final data point was just looking at our updated data, looking at meeting volume across market. And this has been interesting, especially as we've kind of matched it to the national news stories of where we've seen, different cities impacted by COVID-19 heavier. Great to see New York, up 1.5% for the week. Boston's the one that we've seen impacted significantly. It's up 10.5%. And then Austin was down last week, and we're seeing it, up 13%. Great to see, a bounce back there. So across the board, even LA up 14, we're seeing, positivity, just an increase in productivity and meeting rates across just about every market. Chicago is the only one that was down 4.5%, and could be tied to different segments being highly concentrated there. But this is this, by the way, does Austin match this? Is this what you're feeling in the Austin market?
I think so. Austin has thankfully not been impacted too badly so far. The mayor is decisive around taking actions around social distancing, halting South by Southwest pretty early.
Yep.
And so I think some good decisive actions were made. And while everyone's adapting to working from home, I think for the most part, we've been faring quite well.
Terrific. Well, I appreciate it. Tomorrow I've got Darren Johnson joining me, but I want to say, Vinay, thanks so much for kicking off today, making this a good Wednesday, and just to wish you and the team all the best.
Thank you, Jim. Pleasure to be on, and wish you and your team all the best as well.
Thank you so much. Cheers.
Bye-bye.